reaction, and to think that this happened in broad daylight. But I think what has, you know, really, really horrified us is that this was waiting. I was there in the square at Parnell Square at 3:30 on Thursday. You know, it was ugly then. It was very clear that once darkness was going to fall, that something was going to happen that night. And it was a failure at the very top of Garda Síochána, that last Thursday night's rioting happened. It was a failure on the part of government. And this is not just about one minister. This is a whole of government failure here.
Okay, so we have, I suppose, we have Marie Sherlock, we have other opposition parties, including the Soc Dems and Sinn Féin, suggesting that they might table a motion of no confidence in Helen McEntee. But Labour Party don't agree with that. Why?
Well, it's not that we don't agree, but what we're saying is there has to be accountability, right? And I'm very clear that there was an absolute failure at the top of Garda Síochána. There's also a failure within government.
So what would you vote then? Would you vote confidence in Helen McEntee?
I don't have any confidence in Helen McEntee, but I'll tell you though, right? We're wasting time talking about the change of one minister when it is a range of ministers, and it has Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and the Green Party in government who have failed here with regards to policing. Because to go back to your original question about feeling safe, right, about safety, particularly in the North Inner City, there is the statistics about the number of incidents, and there's about feeling safe. And and we talk to, you know, people in my community the whole time, and they don't feel safe walking around.
Okay,
and
so the motion of no confidence, you feel you're a bit of a distraction at this point.
Listen, the key thing here is we can change the person at the top, but that is no silver bullet for the issues, the long-standing issues that are going on in the ground. We have seen that, like, the Garda numbers are barely running to stand still. We have 5 juvenile liaison officers for the whole of the North Central area, a tiny number in terms of trying to deal with crime prevention. Community policing has been decimated over the last number of years. We need to get real about Garda recruitment, and this government has not been real about it. There's been lots of announcements, but nothing done on the ground.
John McGurk, you said you don't have confidence in the Justice Minister. You don't think her position is tenable. Do you think the Garda Commissioner's position is tenable?
No, I don't, and I feel very sorry for the Gardaí on the ground. I mean, one of the things Mick O'Toole from the Star the other day reported, a report that didn't get very much attention, was that there were a lot of Gardaí there on Thursday night who had no idea in what circumstances they were allowed to use force, who saw last year, or actually earlier this year, one of their colleagues face charges for pursuing a criminal down the motorway. Those charges are before the courts. We can't comment on them, but there are a lot of Gardaí who are aware of them. We see Gardaí leaving the force in record numbers. Hundreds over the last couple of years because of pay and conditions. And we also have seen, frankly, I mean, one of the most absurd spectacles that we saw over the weekend was actually not Thursday night, but Friday night, when in the city centre, in the wake of what happened on Thursday, we suddenly had surge policing onto O'Connell Street. And there was footage on the internet of kind of ceremonial thumpings of drunks and people who were behaving badly. And all of a sudden, that kind of policing could be achieved. But where was it the previous Friday night?
Well, is that the type of policing we want, Hazel?
No. It's not the type of policing we want, John. And the type of policing we have had in the state is policing by with consensus. And part of what we have, what we had, it did work. It used to work. We had proper community policing around the city, and it did work once upon a time. You had Gardaí, you had various sections of the city that had 4 or 5 community guards, and it worked because they knew the people within the community. They worked with the people in the community, and it worked.
It is utterly nonsensical to suggest that the discontent in the inner city at the moment is because of a lack of community police officers. If that is what our political class think, then they should all go. It has nothing to do with that. What it is more about, the discontent that we saw on Thursday, is about communities that have not been listened to by any of these two.
Okay, so I'll be honest with you, John McGurk, I don't know if everybody would call what we saw on Thursday discontent. It was widespread violence and looting.
What else would you call it?
Widespread violence and looting.
You're putting words in our mouths here, right? Okay.
I didn't put any words in your mouth.
You actually have.
Nobody else on this panel has been interrupted yet, but apparently I can be interrupted. Let me finish this point. It was despicable what happened on Thursday night. It was lawless and it was ridiculous. But there are an awful lot of young people out there, and a lot of people in the inner city who say, oh, they're calling it far right, they're calling it disgraceful. But that's also what they called us when we protested peacefully in East Wall. That is also what they called us when we protested peacefully in Salmond and Rosslare and Killarney. And it makes no difference because no matter what we say, they don't listen to us.
And I mean, there was debate over whether all of those were completely peaceful. But I want to just go back to you, James Lawson, because you did say at the beginning of this that we need to go back to old-fashioned, more robust policing. What does that look like?
It means visibility. It means, like Friday night, and over the weekend when we see significant numbers of police on the street. We need to see a Garda presence. You can walk the entirety of Dublin City Centre district for the last couple of years and never come across a Garda. You can have...
But you can have all the guards on the street that you want, James Lawless, but as John has said, and as Michael O'Toole, the Prime Minister is tweeting, if they feel unsure about how they can react, then it makes no difference. And if people generally feel, and if you think the policing is too soft, the style of policing is too soft, then having extra Gardaí mightn't change anything.
Yeah, so Michael O'Toole's piece actually quoted me saying that the guards need to be empowered to do whatever they need to do, and they cannot be looking over their shoulder at a GSOC inquiry. The case that John referenced, we won't get into the actual case, but I have plans to bring a private members bill before the Dáil in terms of hot pursuit. If Gardaí are pursuing criminals, they shall not be subject to sanction themselves. It's actually...
I'm just wondering how far you think guards should be able to go. What does that look like?
It looks like a proportionate, reasonable response. As we've had for centuries in common law, when a Garda or law enforcement officer intervenes in a riot situation, a public order situation, it's pretty well settled law.
Okay, but Hazel's talking about extra community policing.
And I completely agree with that. I completely agree with that as well. But let's look at a riot. You cannot community police your way out of a riot. You can deal with small, low-level antisocial behaviour through community policing, and I'm a big fan of community policing. But what we saw the other night, the streets were lost. The capital was lost for 4 or 5 hours.
We all seem to be focusing on what to do when a riot happens. But what we need to do is prevent the riot. That is the point you need to have when it comes to proper policing. You need prevention. You need proper intelligence. You need people on the ground. You need people on the beat. And to John's point about people not being listened to, there is a degree here. When you have ethno-nationals with a distorted view going out in droves, causing an issue, that's not a proper protest here, John. So let's not confuse what a proper protest and proper rally is to the groupings that you're describing. So the groupings that you're describing are people out to cause violence and discontent and whip up fear when there is or when there shouldn't be.
Okay, that's
first of all, the idea that people are out whipping up fear, and I'm not here to defend any nutcase ethno-nationals, but there's a reason they're the only people who these people in these communities seem to be listening to. Whipping up fear, she says, after 3 school children were stabbed on the streets by somebody who frankly should not have been in this country. Should not have, let me finish the point. An Irish citizen, yes, but somebody who was reported by John Mooney in the Sunday Times, came here in the year 2000, was issued with a deportation officer.
And appealed that, and appealed it successfully, and was made an Irish citizen.
And according to the Sunday Independent, has never worked a day in his life. And it's not the first instance. It's not the first instance. Let me finish this point. Ryan Casey, the boyfriend of Ashley Murphy, asked a very reasonable question in court in his victim impact statement when he said, "How did somebody?" Are you going to
just talk?
No, because you didn't over it when it happened. So don't cut it off now. What he said.
We did actually.
What he said was.
I just want to go back because your website, John McGurk, has received a lot of criticism this weekend for choosing to highlight the nationality of the suspect in this night attack at a moment in time when there were hostilities in the city centre. I'm wondering, in what way did you feel his nationality had a bearing on this incident?
It was entirely relevant because, as subsequent facts have shown, he was somebody who came here, was given citizenship after being issued with a deportation order, and has never, according to the Sunday Independent, worked a day in his life. It is relevant because of what happened with Joseph Puska, what happened in Sligo with Yusuf Palani.
So how do you differentiate people who are working in a riot
the story was untrue.
and people who are not?
I'm not didn't say it was true. I asked you what its relevance was.
It's essentially the position now seems to have gone from, we're worried about misinformation and disinformation, to all of a sudden you can no longer report true information or you're whipping up fear. And so I would question, you're a fellow journalist, we're discussing journalism, I would question you, what power do you have, Ciara, or any journalists have, to decide what fact the public should or should not know?
I'm not saying that they have, so I'm saying what journalists do have, John McGurk, what they do have, John McGurk, is responsibility. That's what journalists have.
Not to overheat an already
not to overheat or inflame an already hostile situation. That's the responsibility.
What your essential position is that you, as a journalist sitting in that chair, should decide what information the people watching this programme have, and if you decide that they can't handle it, you don't give it to them. In this case, the information was true, it was relevant.
Okay, I want to let you respond to that.
You know what the really sad thing about it is that John goes after those who are Irish citizens, right, regardless of where they're born, who have done wrong in this country, but fails to talk about the thousands of people who come to this country who do good, who work in our hospitals, who work in our retail, and who keep this country afloat every day of the week. And that's the reality of migration into this country. And you are propagating this
fear,
very vile notion about those who come to Ireland, and it is wrong.
Go and kill them.
To go to the point about why last Thursday happened, I very firmly believe there's a small number in this country, right, who are just waiting for the right conditions, like last Thursday, to jump on the news that John very gleefully told everybody that it was an Algerian national who is alleged to have caused the stabbing, and there's a wider group of people who feel disaffected and disenfranchised. They don't necessarily work. They haven't had necessarily educational opportunity, and there are gurriers amongst them who are just there for the crack of the night. And there's an issue. There's an issue with regards to how we are working within our communities to work with those individuals. And to go back to Hazel's point, no, this is important, right? Community policing, intelligence on the ground would have known at 3:30 that day that we needed to get into our communities and ensure that lads were not going to come together and head for the inner city, head for the city centre when darkness was going to break.
Do you accept, John McGurk, that the tweet that you put out that day was picked up by far-right agitators, people who tweet things like "enough is enough, Ireland is full"? It was used that day, and it was a dog whistle to bring people out onto the streets.
And embarrassing nonsense. First of all,
that's a fact. It was picked up.
So was every news reporter that day. That's the first issue. Second, for you to say that I took glee in reporting the stabbing of 3 children is just about the most despicable thing I've ever heard an Irish politician say. Third, the idea that we cannot discuss factually the details of a case. Why is nobody drawn in John Mooney here from the Sunday Times for reporting 2 days after the incident that this person faced a deportation order? No, it's Gript Media. We're the most, by the way, diverse media organisation.
Okay, we actually had John Mooney here on the programme on Thursday night. So he was here actually reporting that.
But the issue being, we have the most diverse media organisation in the country. There are more migrants working for my media organisation than any other.
James, I just want to let you just back in. Yeah. The wider point I think that John was making is that politicians are not listening to people in this country, the type of people who came out on Thursday night, whether they were far-right agitators or opportunistic people who looted and created mayhem on our streets. Yeah. But ultimately, they have concerns, is what John was saying, and you, the politicians, aren't listening.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't accept that at all. It's hard to talk to people that don't want to hear. And I've had first-hand experience of this at multiple international protection centres in my own constituency. There is a legitimate question. The questions can be asked, and there's an engagement exercise, and I've been through it in multiple locations in my own constituency. But there is a small cohort of people who just don't want to believe and don't want to hear and don't want to know the facts. So you can give people information, but their ears have to be open. Well, you tell them the composition or how many people are coming to a particular centre or when they're due to arrive or what the motivation is. They second guess and triple guess and say, well, actually, it's going to be more. And I heard on the internet it's going to be this, and it's going to be 500, not 200, and it's going to be all men, it's going to be this and that. The rumour mill goes into overdrive, and you can engage to the nth degree, but you cannot engage with someone who doesn't want to hear and actually won't accept what you're saying. So I take people at their word. If someone says to me, anyone in this panel says, I'll take that in good faith. But there's a limit to you can't keep repeating the same thing. If people don't believe it, that's their business. Sorry, but just go back to the other night. Go back to the events. I don't think we should ascribe political motivation to all of the thugs on O'Connell Street at the city centre. I think you had twofold. You had groups, many of which were outside the city centre, and the arrests the next day, and there's many more arrests to come, show that if you look at the address profile right across beyond the city, who very deliberately came into town to cause a riot, most of whom were racially motivated, most of whom were far-right groups, and they were well organised, already had the WhatsApp, the Telegrams, etc. set up long before Thursday ever happened. But then you also had a group of disaffected youth who I don't think were politically motivated, and I don't think they were discontent. I think they were in for their crack because they could, because there's no one going to stop them. Why do you burn out the garden? Because I can. And that's what has to stop. They can't do that again.
Hazel Chu, do you think attitudes around immigration in this country are hardening?
They are hardening, especially when there is not responsible reporting in the country, not by the likes of yourselves, but I'm saying the likes of John's media platform. And we've discussed this already, so I'm not going to go right round the table again. But we all know here that when a tragedy like Thursday happened, when there are children, children that is going through senseless violence, The first point of call is unity,
It's
John.
safety.
The first point of call is to make sure that everyone is safe. No, everyone is safe, and that you are in a united front.
So unity
no,
means...
no, no, wait, you said that we didn't interrupt you, so please don't interrupt me. My point is, in a united front and responsible journalism, you send out a message to say what has happened, the facts behind it, and what should happen then. You do not start describing perpetrators and send out a mob. That's not what you're just there to do.
I'm sorry, I've been directly addressed.
I think John would say that's not what your tweet did.
Well, first of all, we reported a fact, which is a fact, no one's disputed it.
But I don't think it has been 100% established. I think it's still
well, the Gardaí don't generally confirm these things, but it's been confirmed by various other media outlets. The issue is now apparently we're reporting facts, but let's talk about the broader picture. Sunday Business Post poll last year found that 75% of people in this country believe there has been too much immigration in recent years. That's 3 to 1, which is exactly the composition of this panel. People might notice, except in the other direction. Yesterday, a Sunday Business Post poll found that 66% of people believe that there have been too much, specifically Ukrainian. I can see why I'm about to interrupt me again. 66% of people believe there have been too many Ukrainian migrants accepted. The population of Europe over the last 10 years has increased by 1.6%. In Ireland, 12%.
Okay, so
one last point.
Briefly.
Ronan Lyons, TCB economist, says we need to build 70,000 homes a year. We're building 30,000. He says we need to build 70,000 to keep up with migration. We can't. The fact is, this is putting huge pressure on communities. There's huge anger, and all these people want to blame the mythical far right. The far right are being fueled by immigration concerns. Immigration concerns are not being fueled
James,
by the far right.
I want to let you to respond to what he's saying. Look, the Sunday Business Post poll shows that there is a conversation to be had about people's concerns about immigration.
Absolutely.
And we're not able to have it in this country, I think is what John was trying to suggest.
Yeah, I don't see why not, because
even though we're having
Irish politicians are among the most accessible in the world. We all do clinics, we all do public meetings, we all knock door to door, as I've been engaging non-stop for the last 2 years on immigration, amongst many, many other things, along with all the usual housing, health, education, schools. It's just one other element in the mix. Of course, the system is under strain. You know, you don't want to be bonkers not to recognise that. There's only so many public halls and disused buildings that can be pressed into service, particularly at a time when we have a housing crisis. But I think the nationality of people occupying those halls or those houses is irrelevant. I think the fact that we have a population struggling to be housed is the real crux of the problem here.
Yeah.
And I think the majority of Irish people, I take the point John makes that polls suggest that we're struggling with immigration. I think that's a logistical issue for sure. But the majority of Irish people are very open-minded, open-hearted.
Yeah.
Many of them have very positive experiences. You don't
Does that reflect what's in the polls?
I think it does. I think if you ask the question, is anybody in your family, have they travelled abroad or have they an immigration story in the family tree? They'll probably say yes. If you say to them, do you think that the building around the corner should be pressed into services and International Protection Centre, they go, oh my God, no. There's a bit of a fear of the unknown here as well. But I think if you actually get into the complexity of it, there is a bit of depth to this. And I think, like any question, it depends how you phrase it.
All right, look, we're going to leave that conversation there for now. Dublin on Fire, a Virgin Media news special on last week's riots and the fallout is going to air here on Virgin Media 1 this Thursday at 10:15. We're going to leave that there for now. Next, a 2-day extension to the Israel-Hamas ceasefire. We get the very latest. Do see